Okay, I am back with a completely different topic. And yeah, I didn't want to mix this topic in with politics or anything like that. But um, maybe it's the Olympics because we had the Winter Olympics here, and there was heartbreak. There was beautiful things, and bad things like well, whatever. Like Alyssa Liu, she was magical. I watched her performance, her gold-winning figure skating performance over and over and over and over again. And I actually had to work a lot, so I missed a lot of the Olympics, but I saw that, and I saw some of the other figure skating, like the afterwards presentation show that they all did, and they were just so talented. And I've always loved figure skating, and um, going back as a child, one thing my mother liked to do for some weird reason was she would take us all after church on Sunday. She would take us to the local roller skating rink. And it doesn't sound like something my mother would do, but she did that. But I was little, I was the youngest, I was little and very klutzy and shy and awkward. And I fell and I fell and I fell. And then the old technician that worked there tightened the wheels on my skates for me. And then I was able to sort of shuffle around and gain my bearings. And then I really grew to be I'd still love to roller skate, and that led to ice skating. And one time around the holidays, my I was a teenager, and my younger cousin Kathleen and um, my aunt Khaki, Kathleen, told my cousin Steve, who was a high schooler, had a car and everything, and she said, "Take the girls to the ice skating rink." And he was going out on a date with friends, like high school friends, girls and guys, and they shoved us in the back of this hatchback and took us to the local ice skating rink. And then I fell and fell and fell, and I had bruises all over my knees. And this girl, one of his friends, my cousin Steve's friends, like a teenage girl, pulled me aside and said, "I can help you." And she showed me how to shuffle around on ice skates on the ice, and so that I wouldn't fall. And then once again in my life, I learned my bearings. That's how I kind of am. If I don't know how to do things, I'm lost, and then somebody shows me, and then I never forget, and I become an expert at it. So I became an expert at skating, and my aunt Khaki would drop my cousin Kathleen and I off at the ice skating rink, uh, all the time. I would stay over at their house on holidays and summer times, and I went from poor house in small town to nice fancy house in the, rich suburbs of Kansas City, and got to live the fancy life. And we went ice skating all the time, and and I became a really good ice skater. In fact, I became so good that I really should, if there had been money in my life, in my mother's life, I should have been in ice skating lessons. It's kind of sad that I wasn't able to do that because I was very proficient on ice skates, and I've always had a love for ice skating. And I've had many a crush on skaters. Like I loved Brian Boitano. I had a huge crush on Brian Boitano. And yes, I know that he's gay, which I love gay people, and I love gay men. But man, I loved him. I had a huge crush on him, and I just find it kind of funny that I've always had this um, love and connection with, I don't know, figure skating. I've watched ice skating events my whole life. I've loved it. I've always enjoyed it. I've shed tears, and anyway, I've always felt I should have been in ice skating, and I also should have been in ballet, sadly. But whatever, that's life. So, watched the Olympics, loved the Olympics, loved Alyssa Liu, cried over Elian Malinin and Amber Glenn and how they didn't have their moments, but Alyssa Liu did, and it was beautiful. I just was so inspired by her. But it reminded me of something. Okay, it reminded me of the 1961 figure skating team that flew on a Boeing 707, and right as they reached Prague for the World Figure Skating Championships, the plane crashed. So they literally got all the way there, were about to land, and the whole plane crashed, and the entire figure skating team plus coaches and mentors died. They all died instantly, and it was such a horrible tragedy. And it's kind of, for lack of a better word, this thing has haunted me, and I've been like researching it, and I read a book about the whole thing, and I watched videos, and there's like videos of the figure skating championships like weeks, literally weeks before they all died. Um, And I just thought, well, why? Why? I've been asking Spirit, why? Why would this? What is this meaning? Because I do believe there's a meaning to everything, and I just wanted to share with you what Spirit told me. And I kind of asked at work, and I also asked on the way home, and just listened to what Spirit had to tell me. And so you can look it up for yourself. It's interesting how if you watch the videos, and of course I love the Beatles, so I know the Beatles video era it's kind of modern, mid-century modern. And then it almost seems like this era of these figure skating team is that right before that new modern era, mid-century. They look very ghostly when you look at the videos of them skating. And yeah, it's very haunting. So anyway, what Spirit told me was it was mid-century, and it's almost like if you look back at that time, like Buddy Holly crashed and died, Richie Valens, and there was a lot of sort of tragic events at that time. JFK dies a few years later. It was almost like the mid-century it's split in half. It's almost like that's what had to happen. You had pre and after, and the mid-century era, everything split in half. And sometimes part of that was that it was a violent, tragic event. But in other ways, it was like civil rights split in half so that we could get to another era of, having civil rights and carrying out the laws. And it's just a lot of things at that time in mid-century, 20th century, everything sort of broke apart. And so that tragedy was like the old era and then the new era. So what it really did was it created a fund so that upcoming, like Peggy Fleming, I love Peggy Fleming, and I've been watching all her videos. She was from a poor family with lots of children, and she was able to have funding from the a scholarship that came out of the crash that people donated money to, and that gave her the ability to skate and have a coach. And by the way, one of her coaches died on the plane, so she had to get a new coach. Anyway, but it did things like that. The door of that time closed, and then this new era. Okay, so let me keep on track here. So these people, almost everyone on that plane and the figure skating team, had reached the pinnacle of their success at that time. Yes, they could have gone on to do more and been in the Olympics and got gold in the Olympics, but at that moment, they were all at the top of their game. They all had achieved the highest of their sport. And after that, maybe they would have all splintered into other, we don't know what their life would have been. We will never get to know, sadly. But they were at the height of their abilities. Okay, also, they were like stars. They were like constellations. And as they went across the sky in this plane all together, it was like a constellation of stars. And where they landed in the crash site was where almost like a shooting star that fell to earth. And mind you, we're all from the stars. We're here on Earth. Our star is on the inside of us. We shine outwards. Out in the galaxy, stars, literal stars and gamma rays shines outward toward us, and it's probably dark on the inside. Okay, so they were constellations, and where they landed was almost like they landed in the constellation together. The other thing is that it made Boeing fix issues in the plane that would have killed masses of people and many other crashes from that moment on. So that crash with celebrity skaters brought to the forefront the need to fix problems in the Boeing so that it would save other people's lives. So it used celebrities, well-known people to do that. Okay. See how spirit works. You see how there's like all these different meanings. Okay, and the other thing that I thought was so beautiful was that that the ice skaters, when they do a jump, they jump in the air. They use like the blade, or they use the pick, like the front of the skate, to catapult off the ice and spin, and then and land. And they do a 1-foot landing, and sometimes they have a failed landing and they fall. And I just find it so interesting how this plane, with all of these figure skaters on it, the plane spun and crashed and literally had a failed landing. And it was almost like all that energy of their daredevilism and the figure skating and, anyway, the spinning and then a failed landing. The other thing was they were, as they were flying toward Prague, there was a full eclipse, and they were on board the plane and could see the eclipse in its totality. And right as the sun came out again from total blackness, they crashed. So literally, it was like a huge eclipse moment again of the mid-century splintering in half of one era breaking open to the new era. So I just thought that was interesting, and I thought I would share all the reasons that Spirit told me about this, and maybe you'll go look it up and find fascination. I mean, I get these autistic things where I go look up topics and I become like, my daughter says, autistic obsession or hyperfixation. But yeah, I just, and I haven't really channeled anyone. I don't really want to. They're so precious. I do feel like some of the skaters have been reincarnated, or at least part of their energy was brought back into people like Alyssa Liu, and Michelle Kwan in particular stands out to me as someone who maybe some of them came back as Brian Bottano, possibly. Although he might have already, yeah, it's a very possible Brian Bottano has some of that soul energy of some of the skaters. So anyway, for anyone who's interested in this type of weird random topic, and how spirit works, you see how our life, they had a soul contract and they all died together as this one beautiful energy. A lot of us, many of us will die alone. But I think it's interesting how they died as a constellation and went right to the place like a shooting star, right in the alignment with the heavens of the constellation. And it makes you think that, is that going to happen to all of us when each of us dies? Are we born in the right place and then we die in the right place too? And I don't know. I just find it fascinating. Thought you guys would like to hear that. And thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Have a great night and happy Easter to you. Bye.